Pharmaceutical stocks are moving today as President Trump announces his aim to slash drug prices earlier today, but they're not necessarily going in the direction that you might expect. For more, we're bringing in Courtney Breen, senior analyst of U.S. biopharmaceuticals at Bernstein. And Courtney, initially, some of these stocks moved down. And then we saw them sort of move up to little change because I guess the industry was expecting something different. Can you walk us through that and why this is not a worst case outcome for them?
Absolutely. Great to be with you today. It is a busy day, and there's lots of announcements and lots of stock movements, as you suggested. Absolutely right. There were a few rumors that came out early this morning that pushed stock prices lower, and there was the Truth Social post from Trump himself last night that caused some consternation. But then when we got to the press conference today, and then the signing of the executive order, and then actually seeing the contents of that executive order, there was a bit of a sigh of relief for the industry. And part of that came from the tone that Trump used. I think he even used language that suggested he was willing to go into bat for the pharmaceutical companies and defend them and help them raise their prices in other countries around the world. And there was a lot of kind of positive sentiment shared by Trump about the importance of pharma companies, and that this was very much the responsibility and the challenges that America is facing is on the shoulders of other countries rather than the drug companies themselves. So that certainly was a positive reaction, and I think in some ways aligned with your previous guest. I would agree with the fact that we still don't have all the details yet, but what we do have paints a perhaps less risky environment for the drug companies over the next couple of months.
Courtney, is it your understanding that President Trump, does he have the authority, Courtney, to do what he is proposing, what he wants to do here without congressional approval and legislation?
Great question. So I think what was interesting in this executive order, where there is a request part of the order, and then there is a kind of threat part of the order. And in the request part is the suggestion that the government, the administration, will pull together proposed MFN prices, propose these to companies, and then the companies get to choose to take actions to start lowering their US prices to come into line with those MFN prices. That perhaps is kind of within the bounds of some of the actions that could be taken if the industry decides to play ball. The second part, though, the threat, if the industry doesn't play ball, is when legislation is required, kind of akin to what we saw with Biden and kind of the IRA and the MFP, the maximum fair price negotiations that are in place now for Medicare drugs. This is likely to be required to be instigated in legislation. And certainly through the press conference today, we saw reference to the fact that the intention is to load this legislation into the big, beautiful bill that the Republicans are preparing on a number of topics, including tax cuts, and ensure that that is a place for it to potentially pass. I think, however, there is a lot of steps, a lot of detail, and the devil will really be in that detail as to whether this legislation can kind of proceed, doesn't have court issues going forward, and we do actually see any implementation of this, I think, is still a question mark.
So, Courtney, do you think that the drug companies will call the president's bluff and not lower the prices as he's requesting?
I think this is something that we're going to see playing out over the next few weeks to month. They've given themselves, the administration, a 30-day deadline to begin these conversations with pharma companies, bearing in mind kind of the pharma lobbying body, pharma, and many of the CEOs have been engaged with the administration kind of day in and day out over the past couple of months on this, along with tariffs. So kind of this will be a continuation of conversations that have probably already been happening in private. Certainly what we did see in the executive order were a number of things that the drug companies have been wanting to achieve. They've been wanting to point the target to the countries outside the US and say their drug prices are too low, and we need your help there. And they've also been pointing to the PBMs as being responsible for a large part of the reason as to why US drug prices are too high. So there certainly were some olive branches given to the industry, and definitely a reflection even of the industry lobbying language in this bill, in this executive order. And so when it comes to kind of, is there going to be goodwill and trust from the industry? There might be a path here, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, and then I guess what I'm curious about is the international piece of this. Is it realistic that these drug makers could raise their prices elsewhere? I mean, regulations is what really has stopped them from doing so, correct? Is there any real chance, maybe with tariffs as the stick in this case, that you would see changes in that way?
It's a great question. I mean, as we all well know, kind of the US government doesn't govern kind of the non-US countries around the world. They have their own kind of legal systems, their own healthcare systems, their own drug pricing approaches, which include a variety of different mechanisms. And so certainly kind of there isn't any direct oversight or direct influence that is clear, or a clear path, or a path that's been utilized before for the US to influence this outcome. However, kind of you made reference to tariffs, and I think kind of we are in a different world order at the moment than we've been for a long time. And I think this executive order and press release line up quite closely with many of the things Trump has done over the past few months, where kind of he's cobbling together topics that span across different federal groups, different government departments, and suggesting to perhaps stop or put very severe tariffs on auto imports from Europe in a trade for being able to increase drug prices in Europe. That's something that we've never seen done before. There isn't kind of any clear mechanism to achieve so, but kind of we're in a different negotiation environment between countries than we've ever been before, and so we'll have to see whether there is any real kind of stick that can be used with tariffs to influence this, but certainly it will be going kind of coloring well outside the lines of what kind of normal standard procedure or standard regulations allow for.